So it looks like Pi Network has been paying close attention to its community, and the result? A pretty major overhaul of its Testnet Decentralized Exchange, or DEX. Today, we're going to break down exactly what's changed, why the team did it, and, most importantly, why it actually matters for you, the pioneers. Let's jump right in. Everything really starts with this simple but pretty powerful question. Pi's entire mission is about taking all this complex technology, like crypto, and making it genuinely accessible. And these latest updates, they're a perfect example of that whole philosophy in action. All right, before we get into the nitty-gritty, it's super important to remember where all of this is happening, the testnet. You got to think of it like a giant sandbox, a totally safe space where millions of pioneers can get their hands dirty with decentralized finance, or DeFi, without risking any real money. This is all about learning, experimenting, and building skills. So you might be asking, what sparked all these changes? Well, it really boils down to one thing: listening. The Pi team has been watching how pioneers are actually using these tools, and they've been collecting a ton of feedback. This isn't just about adding shiny new features, it's about making the whole experience feel more intuitive and, actually useful. And this right here, this slide pretty much sums up the game plan. The goals are to connect tokens to real-world use cases, to make Pi the absolute center of the ecosystem, and, this one's huge, to slice through the usual crypto complexity and build something that's way more transparent and user-friendly for everybody. So the first major problem they decided to tackle was something that became obvious pretty fast during the early tests: the sheer chaos of fragmented trading. So how did they go about bringing some order to that system? This is such a great analogy. In the beginning, the testnet DEX was exactly like that messy, chaotic market. If you wanted to trade, say, token A for token B, you might have to jump between a bunch of tiny, inefficient stalls. It was confusing, and you probably weren't getting a great price because each little stall had hardly any stop. Yeah, and what's great about this slide is how clearly it lays out the before and after. On the left, you've got the old way, all these tiny, scattered pools of money, what we call liquidity pools. But the new way on the right brings everything together around Pi. It's not about adding more money, it's about making the money that's already there work a whole lot smarter. So the official name for this solution is Pi-centric pairing. Basically, Pi becomes the main hub, the universal currency for every single trade. Instead of trying to find some obscure market to trade token A directly for token B, you just trade token A for Pi, and then you trade that Pi for token B. Easy. And hey, this isn't some brand new, crazy idea. It's a proven model that major crypto exchanges use, and it brings a whole new level of stability to the Pi testnet. Okay, so what does this all actually mean for you? Well, a much, much better trading experience. Deeper, consolidated pools mean that prices don't just wildly swing around with every single trade. It means you get less slippage, that super annoying difference between the price you think you're going to get and the price you actually get. At its core, it just makes the whole market way more stable and reliable. All right, so they've made trading more efficient. Awesome, but, that's only half the battle. The next big challenge is a really fundamental one for any decentralized system. How in the world do you know who or what you can actually trust? Before, when you looked at a token, all you saw was this long, totally intimidating string of letters and numbers, the blockchain address. For most people, that's completely meaningless. So if someone said, hey, this is the official token for myawesomeproject.com, you had no easy way to check if that was true. That was a huge barrier to trust. The new system fixes this with a really simple, elegant solution. Now, token creators can link their token to a web domain they actually own, and the platform verifies that link. So as a user, instead of that crazy string of characters, you see a recognizable domain name, like a website address, right there in the app. It's a small change, but it has a huge impact on clarity. Now listen up, because this quote from the Pi team is super important. This feature is a tool. It is not a guarantee of safety. It's designed to give you more information so that you can make your own assessment of a project. It doesn't mean a token is endorsed or safe, but it does make it way easier to spot potential fakes or impersonators. At the end of the day, the responsibility is still yours. And this whole idea of trust and transparency, it flows right into the third major update, which is all about how tokens get ranked. This tackles a massive problem in the wider crypto world, metrics that look really important but are often just smoke and mirrors. The classic example is market cap. You've probably heard of it. It's just the token's price multiplied by how many are out there. But here's the problem. A developer can create a billion tokens, keep 99.9% for themselves, and then just trade that tiny little bit left over to artificially pump the price way, way up. All of a sudden, their project looks like it's worth millions on paper, even when there's nothing really there. This slide shows the difference perfectly. On the left, a token can trick you with a high market cap through some clever manipulation. But on the right, Pi's new liquidity ranking is based on how much actual capital, in this case, test Pi, is put into that token's trading pool. You just can't fake that. It takes a real commitment. What this all means is that a liquidity-based ranking is just a much more honest signal. If a project wants a high rank, they have to put real capital on the line. It's way harder to manipulate, it shows genuine commitment, and it gives all of us pioneers a much more realistic picture of a token's actual footprint in the ecosystem. Okay, let's pull all of this together. We've just walked through 3 huge updates that create a clearer, more transparent, and just more logical system. But what does this new and improved toolkit actually mean for you when you're playing around on the testnet? If you're going to remember 3 things from all this, make it these. First, you get better, more stable prices when you trade, all thanks to Pi-centric pairing. Second, you get more transparency from domain verification, helping you figure out who's behind a token. And third, you get honest rankings based on real liquidity, not some metric that's easy to game. And really, at the end of the day, all of these changes roll up to Pi's main goal, to demystify DeFi. They're building a testnet environment where absolutely anyone can learn, experiment, and grow their financial literacy in a way that's practical, hands-on, and a whole lot safer. And that brings us to the final, and maybe the most important, question of all. Now that this more organized, more transparent, and more user-friendly foundation is being laid on the testnet, the focus starts to shift. It becomes less about how the tools work, and more about what you, the community, will now build with them.